Hi, everybody. For the introduction, I am Fritz. I work for the University of Minnesota Extension in the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships in a special program called CERTs, which is Clean Energy Resource Teams. So kind of classic university, I am in a program of a program. I work exclusively with farmers and rural businesses on clean energy matters. So I get this to move or not. There we go. So what do we do at CERTs? Basically, we help Minnesotans figure out their clean energy projects. We're sort of a resource library for clean energy matters, and we're pretty heavily networked throughout the utility industry. Whether that's in the metro or in rural electric cooperatives, we typically know who the person is that that farmer might want to call. And our job is to connect folks to the resources they need to do these projects. Sometimes it's just technical assistance. Sometimes it's just basic questions. And then sometimes it's guidance through different grant and loan programs. I'm going to try and be quick because the hour's running short. How do we work? We are distributed. We're across 7 regions in the state. I am statewide staff. I'm one of 6 statewide staff folks. And each region is guided by steering committees. The steering committees are made up of a range of folks. Sometimes it's school teachers, sometimes it's local business folks, sometimes they're utility employees. It's a range, but the whole idea is that the clean energy ideas come up from kind of the grassroots, because that's more likely to be successful than some kind of studied in the metro and then try to be pushed out to the locals. So we operate through teamwork. It's a lot of communication, a lot of emails, but the whole idea is just keep having this conversation. It's an iterative conversation, and to help Minnesota move toward a clean energy future. Briefly, I'll give you my run of show here. We'll do solar tips, tax matters, and I'll talk about a couple of different funding programs. I have a couple extra slides on utility scale solar taxes as well, just in case that question comes up, and as a segue for Brian Ross. First things first, efficiency. Efficiency is always going to be your least cost option if you're trying to make some kind of energy improvement on your farm or your business. Just rough numbers, every dollar you invest in energy efficiency is going to save you energy on the back end for a renewable energy project, somewhere around $3 to $5. And the whole idea is you're shrinking your energy load. It is basics. Some of it's just getting your kids to turn the lights off and they leave the room, or do something like install an occupancy sensor. If you haven't changed out your lighting in the last 10 years, you definitely want to take a look at that. For a lot of farmers, it's keeping your fans clean, your fan blades clean, and keeping your louvers working well. Other stuff like tractor block heater timers, so you don't have to plug in your tractor block all night. It's kind of basic stuff. If you just take a minute to think through how you can manage your farm or your business effectively, that's going to be the most helpful. You can get it's pretty easy to get a walkthrough from a utility employee, just to help them or help you identify other projects that might happen in the future. Maybe something like an air source heat pump, which is a much more efficient air conditioning piece of equipment than most existing compressor-based air conditioners. All right, Midwest solar resource, on to solar. It is better than you might think it is. We sit up pretty high on the globe. So it's not the desert. We're not in Colorado. We're not in Arizona or New Mexico, but we do okay here. It's pretty good, especially in the summertime, because we have those longer summer days. I'm not going to say it's great in December and January. I'll be honest with you. It's not the most awesome, but the rest of the year it works pretty well. Here's a nice little tool you can use. This is the Solar Map app. It was developed by the University of Minnesota GIS program, and it gets down to 1 meter squared resolution. So you can check out a rooftop, maybe your own rooftop, maybe your business's rooftop, or the yard in front, to figure out where the best spot is. Obviously, the lighter the shade, the better the solar resource. But it just kind of helps people understand, where you would put it if you're going to put it anywhere. A couple of examples of solar. That one in the top right was a hay barn that was designed specifically to host solar. It's probably the nicest hay barn I've seen. So anyhow, some other popular installations, you'll see the one right below the hay barn, that's on the back side of Xcel Energy Center in downtown St. Paul, which is right next to the Science Museum. That's called an eyelash installation. And then just a couple other typical installations, suburban home, nice church and so forth. But it goes everywhere. It's a very modular technology. Here's another tool. I won't get into the weeds on this one, but this is PV Watts, which is designed by NREL. It uses about 50 years of weather data from NOAA to identify how long and how strong the sun is at a particular address. Most of the private tools use that same weather database from NOAA. That's kind of how they all figure out their math. It's got a few bells and whistles on it, so I won't just unleash it to you, but if you want help kind of punching in the numbers, I can certainly help you through that too. Panel types, more on basics. We have a monosilicon, polysilicon, and then thin film. The majority in Minnesota is going to be polysilicon and monosilicon. Thin film seems to be perpetually like 5 years away from implementation. It's out there, I'm not going to lie about it, but I don't see it very often. Most of the panels are going to be that mono and polysilicon. Monosilicon is a little bit more, I would say, energy dense, and production efficiency is higher in monosilicon panels than polysilicon panels, but you also get a little bit of a price bump that relates to that. Other basics, it would surprise you how often I have this conversation, but the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We sit in the northern hemisphere, which means it's going to go from east to west, and it's going to be strongest in the summer, and it's going to be weakest in the wintertime. Sometimes it just helps to get a visual on that, which is why I think this is a really kind of a well-crafted image. There are different theories on what angle or what panel tilt you should install your solar panels. Most people are stuck with whatever roof they have. That's going to be the thing. But you can, if you do it by the book, you're supposed to do it at latitude, which around here is about 45 degrees, and that's supposed to give you ideal production. Other folks stick to the a short formula that basically sets it at 37, 36 degrees, because we have those longer summer days that can max out the kilowatt hour production with the brighter sun and hotter weather. Anyway, that's the solar window. A couple more things. Obviously, you want to point it south, but if you're not perfectly aligned at 180 degrees south, it's not going to hurt you too much. You obviously don't want to point it 90 degrees east or west. But you can get away with something that's a little bit off kilter. This is what I like to call the solar strike zone. As you can tell, like the ideal pitch is going to be a 9/12 pitch. That's going to maximize the solar production with that hot summer day. It's the closest you're going to get, the long summer day, excuse me. The closest you're going to get to 37 degrees. Anything from 4/12 to 12/12, which is pretty much what every residence is built to be, is going to be like that. Once you start getting around 5/12, 4/12, 3/12, you're talking about a commercial roof. That's going to be a ballasted system, which means it's going to be sitting on a rack, probably with some cinder blocks to weigh down the system. That's the ballast that they're talking about. And next slide should have images of that. Nope, guess not. Structural load. I have a lot of conversations with people that have old barns and they're not very useful, and they've got some good roofs on them. But generally you have to consider things like snow in Minnesota. Snow, as you know, can crush a building. It can cause a total collapse. And I certainly don't want anybody to lose their solar array, which is probably going to be more valuable than that old building. If your roof design can handle 50 pounds per square foot, which most modern builds can, then you can be fine. If it's a 40 pound per square foot rooftop, there's some workarounds. You can do a couple of things structurally to make that work. But you need about 5 to 7 pounds per square foot of wiggle room to consider the structural load when it comes to snow. But there are also calculations that relate to wind. Most folks, I should go back one slide. If your trusses are 24 inches apart, you should be fine. That's kind of the general rule. Getting back to the slide I thought was going to happen. These are how the systems tend to be racked. The one on the right is the ballasted system for those flatter commercial roofs, you know, with the 412 pitch or lower. See a lot of rural buildings with metal roofs with standing seams on them. Those are really nice installations because of the clamping systems that they have. There's no perforation, they just clamp right onto that raised seam. In the middle, you have a corrugated roof system where you do puncture the roof, but it goes through the actual you know, the raised part that doesn't see water much anyway, if at all. So those are the three basic ones. I didn't show you a residential system because there's a variety of different ways to do them. Typically, they're pretty seamless when it goes up on the residence. Usually there's maybe a little piece of flashing, but it fits right in underneath the shingle. So there's really not much water risk at all, for that matter. It's easiest on the ground. It's probably the biggest thing I want to tell you. It's unlimited square footage. It's easier to install. The maintenance is easier. You know, if you have a little technical problem, it's easy to walk up to the back of the panel and try and figure out how to get to it if it's in the middle of your roof space. There's no setback. If it's a residential installation, you have to be at least 3 foot off of the roof pitch. And one thing I think is really important is that solar arrays that are on the ground run cooler, which is really important for electronics because heat is sort of poison to electronics. It causes electron resistance and generally can kind of bend down the failure rate of electronic equipment. So if you can put it on the ground, it's easier. Most farms and rural residents have a lot more space. They might have an aesthetic preference for putting it on the roof, but if you can, put it on the ground. Cost factors, there are a lot of them. I don't want to go into all of them, but you can get a fancy DAN panel with super high production efficiency and like a 35 or 40 year manufacturer's warranty that's never going to die. Or you can get just a middle of the strike zone workhorse panel that's going to do the same job and just get the job done. There are per remaining costs. There's the ease of installation. You know, I see a lot of suburban roofs where I really wonder what the cost recovery is on that because of all the different angles and dormers that the installer had to work around. Other stuff, logistics, like how far away are you? Where are the panels? Are they in a warehouse nearby? Are they on the other side of the state? How far do you have to trench to get it to a main panel or a sub panel, so on and so forth. There are tons of cost factors. But I'll say this, the ballpark installation cost, this is just going to be a rough estimate because every time I give this information, somebody's either really happy with me or really angry with me. But it's going to range about $2.25 to just under $3 if it's on the ground. If it's up on the roof, it's a little bit more expensive, maybe $3.25. If you add a dual access tracker, which is basically what it sounds like, the solar panels will track the sun in the same way a sunflower will, from north, south, east, and west for all year. It adds a material cost component. It's going to bump up the cost to about $4.75. It's also going to deliver you about 30% more kilowatt hours annually because it's catching those early sun hours and those late sun hours, and it's always optimizing for energy production. But anyway, you can see how much the hardware cost has dropped. But again, some of those cost factors have to do with the installation and labor, and the permitting costs. Actually, it's a lot of the soft costs that that make up the solar installation. Let's see, net metering. State policy, which essentially allows you to trade kilowatt hours with utility company at a 1-for-1 rate. It's the easiest way to say it. And the important thing about net metering is to communicate early and often with your electric cooperative or your electric utility. If it's an investor-owned utility or municipal utility. The capacity limit for that net metering policy, where it's that 1-for-1 kilowatt hour rate trade, is 40 kilowatts AC. If you try and 40 kilowatts AC, which translates into a ballpark 45, 46 kilowatt DC solar array because of the conversion factor going from DC to AC. You pay your bill in AC, and that's what the utility measures. So that's why they care about the alternating current AC. If it's over 40 kW, the compensation rate drops to the wholesale rate, which is going to be 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents. And then just as rough size estimates, a 40 kW AC system is going to be about the size of a tennis court, just to give you an idea. Let's see what else. Tax matters. I'll try and be quick because I know I'm running long. You have a 26% federal energy investment income tax credit, the federal ITC. So it's income tax credit. It's 26% through the end of 2023. It has a 20-year carry forward provision. You definitely want to talk to your tax accountant to see whether you're likely to max out that tax advantage. The other one is accelerated depreciation. Many farms and businesses understand appreciation. This is an accelerated depreciation provision in the tax code that puts solar arrays on a 5-year property schedule to recover that cost early. Again, solar has a 30-year lifespan, so it's a pretty good deal. There's a way to do 100% depreciation and treat it very similarly to a Section 179 deduction. If farmers have a banner year, I'm not sure this year is going to be that banner year for at least, especially if you're a beef farmer in light of the drought. But there's a way to do that as well. It's 100% bonus depreciation. Again, talk to your tax accountant. Just to help you understand whether these tax advantages are available. What's interesting is the adjusted basis for solar. You get the 26% income tax credit, which is based off the cost of the solar array. You get the 5-year property tax schedule, which is a tax deduction. But the depreciable basis is calculated only by reducing it by half of the income tax credit. So instead of, $100,000 minus $26,000 is going to give you $74,000. So you actually start with the higher basis. So there's a little bit of an added tax benefit in there in the depreciation. It's not very much, but it's kind of an interesting provision. Okay, moving on to the grants. So USDA REAP grant. This is the one that most farmers and businesses in greater Minnesota talk to me about. It will cover 25% of the eligible project costs. Covers labor, equipment, fees, and permits. It has 2 deadlines. One of them is Halloween. One of them is, end of March. Your farm or rural small business, which is probably anybody on this webinar, would be eligible to apply. You have to be a for-profit business, for the record. It's a competitive grant program. It's got a couple limits. I've never seen anybody hit the bottom threshold for project cost. That just doesn't happen. But you have to be able to show you have at least 75% of the money to do the project. And candidly, if you want to score competitively, you need to show you have 100% project backing, which reminds me of Murphy's Law, which says like in order to get a loan, you need to prove that you don't need the loan. It's kind of like that. But I will say this, I've seen this program work in tandem with another program. I'm going to skip over that. It's a long application. I can hold your hand, or I can point you to some grant writers. But I see the REAP program work in tandem with the PACE program. PACE is a loan program that allows a farmer or business owner to take a loan up to 20% of their property value in order to do a clean energy project. So I've seen farmers show that they have 100% project backing through the PACE loan, and then apply for the REAP grant. And get the REAP grant because they've been able to show that 100% project backing based on the asset that is their land or their business. Anyway, now I'm hopping to another loan program. This is run through the St. Paul Port Authority. It's called Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's a way to finance building energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades. It's repaid as a line item on your property tax assessment. So it does not float with your property tax percent or it's a fixed line item. And it's paid over a period of up to 20 years. Usually it's 10. Briefly, in 4 steps, the property owner identifies the project, kind of scopes the project. They make the application to the St. Paul Port Authority. St. Paul Port Authority finances the project. The county adds the value of that loan to the property tax bill, and then the owner pays pays back the loan for up to 20 years. What's really interesting about these projects is they're designed to be cash flow positive, meaning your energy savings from doing your energy project is always going to be larger than the increase in your property tax from that special assessment, and has a pretty quick turnaround. A lot of details. Agriculture, agriculture is eligible. Businesses, manufacturing, multifamily housing, even nonprofits and churches can apply for this because it operates similarly to like a sidewalk improvement, where even if you're a church, you still have to pay for the cost of the sidewalk that's the city decided to improve because you're just a public participant. But again, it's not tied to your property tax value. It's a separate line item. It's a way to free up capital that otherwise wouldn't be available. I said that. You have to be current on your mortgage and your property taxes. You're limited to 20%. Probably the benefits are the low origination fee. It does create jobs, and it actually has a really quick approval process, usually inside of a month, maybe 5 weeks, depending on when you file it. But, it's a well-run program, and it's worked well for commercial entities, especially. I do all this work under funding from the Office of Rural Development by the USDA, so I just want to thank them. You're welcome to contact me if you want me to come out and do a solar site assessment, maybe model something. I will also review other site assessments from vendors. I don't pick favorites, but I can raise questions if you're interested. And I can hold your hand through some of these grant and loan projects too. Again, efficiency is really important. You always want to do that first. That's going to be your best bet no matter what. And the last thing, and I'm sorry I'm running along here, but utility scale solar taxes. I wanted to mention this before Brian, but the property tax classification for large scale solar, just over 1 megawatt AC, is going to change from agricultural to commercial, industrial, and utility, which means the county is going to yield more property tax value out of that new construction. Likely going to be at that 2% rate. Additionally, the county is going to get energy production, an energy production tax payment, which is it's $1.20 per megawatt hour. And the revenue is split 80% to the county, 20% to the township. And if you look at the historic production from utility scale solar arrays, it comes out to about $2,200 per megawatt per year, just as a multiplier. So that's it. Thanks for letting me get through all that, guys.